A federal judge has once again rejected work requirements in 2 states seeking to apply them to their Medicaid programs. These were work requirements approved in both Kentucky and Arkansas, approved by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services by a waiver submitted by either state. They were then very quickly challenged as being contrary to the intent of the Medicaid program. These cases were being heard by the same federal judge, and he has issued his opinions in both cases this week. Now, this is the same judge that actually heard the first challenge to Kentucky's work requirement 9 months ago. He invalidated the work requirement, sent it back to the state and to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to reevaluate if they could rewrite those work requirements and find a way to make them fit the priorities of the Medicaid program. HHS reapproved Kentucky's waiver, having no changes being made, so you can anticipate when it landed back on Federal Judge Boasberg's desk, he once again rejected them for the same reasons. Now, the timing is important. The new work requirements in Kentucky were scheduled to start on April 1st. So stopping the work requirement means that now people can get connected to Medicaid in these states, but without that extra hurdle of having to prove that they can work to get their Medicaid. Now, that was Kentucky. Meanwhile, while that first back and forth between the state and the feds was happening, the state of Arkansas had its own challenge to work requirements. Arkansas implemented their work requirements back in June of 2018. It was being phased in by age group for their Medicaid recipients. The requirement, just like Kentucky, was to work 80 hours a month and report your work or lose coverage. 18,000 individuals lost coverage for failure to comply, and we were coming up against an April 1st deadline in Arkansas as well. That was a key date for the next group of individuals to be kicked off of the program for either failing to work or failing to report their work. Now, these lawsuits, some were class actions, as in Kentucky, were trying to argue that work requirements do not advance the program's objectives. They do not advance the objectives of Medicaid. The Trump administration, this was language coming out of the first round of arguments in Kentucky, the Trump administration failed to meet the standards before approving Kentucky's plan. After the feds reinstated work requirements again, Judge Boasberg said, and you still didn't meet that requirement. In that March 27th ruling, U.S. District Court Boasberg said that the federal government failed to justify that adding employment conditions and other changes to Medicaid advanced Medicaid's basic purpose of providing health coverage. He said this is not a work program. This is not a work incentive program. It's not a welfare to work program. Medicaid is a health entitlement program, and there was nothing that the feds could point to show him otherwise. The judge invalidated the CMS approvals of Medicaid work requirements in the waivers coming out of Kentucky and Arkansas, which means that both the agencies, both are being sent back to CMS for further reconsideration. He also ordered an immediate halt to Arkansas's work requirement program, and he blocked Kentucky from implementing theirs. So there are, at current date, no work requirements in Kentucky and Arkansas. The impact was dramatic. Like we said, 18,000 adults in Arkansas were kicked off of Medicaid. Kentucky's work rules were projected to cut up to 95,000 residents off of Medicaid. The Trump administration has approved work requirements in the meantime in other states, including Wisconsin's request. And after this decision coming out of Kentucky and Arkansas, CMS went ahead and approved Utah's Medicaid expansion with work requirements. So there is more to come on this topic of whether or not these work requirements can be allowed in the Medicaid program. You can bet there's going to be more litigation. Now, Wisconsin did have its work requirements approved by the feds, but they have not yet been implemented, and we will bring you more on that in a separate video. Now, here are a couple quotes coming out of the federal judge. Judge Boasberg said that work requirements are arbitrary and capricious. They do not address how the project would implicate the core objective of Medicaid, the provision of medical coverage to the needy. And what seems clear out of conversations and reactions to this decision, that the work requirement will continue to be a priority of this administration, of the Trump administration, and states with current requirements that aren't tracking data on finding work or getting healthy are going to be suffering to even prove their case should this come to litigation in their state. Now, you can read the Kentucky decision, you can read the Arkansas decision. We link to those in the description below. We have separate videos that go a little bit deeper into why work requirements in Medicaid is contrary to the intent of keeping people healthy, and you can read more on that. There is a lot of research saying you need to be healthy to work. You don't need to work to get healthy. You can read those stories, you can follow our videos, and we link to all of that at healthwatchwisconsin.org.